right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of Podcasting with the Libertarian Party of India. So, if you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, please head over right down there and watch them before you watch this, because we are taking this by stages and we are going to talk about common issues that people in India in terms of governance face, and we are going to dwell with solutions from the Libertarian Party of India. So, welcome to the Podcasting with Libertarian of episode 3. How does your party address social justice and inequality role? How does the party play a role in addressing these issues?
So, first of all, the concept of social justice has been hijacked by lunatics. We need to be pretty much clear about it. It is really debatable whether such a political movement should exist or not. But talking in terms of whether it is a cultural problem, definitely. So justice is a problem that definitely there are discrimination in society and irrational discrimination in society that we definitely need to solve. But the question is, should the government get involved in it? To which the answer is no, because then you have politicians and bureaucrats trying to play both sides and extracting their basically their motives out of all these issues. The biggest one being in India is the two biggest one being the caste and the communal issue, and we are nowhere near attaining peace in either of the front, and it has been over 75 years. So
Yeah.
what can be done? The question is, what can be done to address these issues? And the question is, what needs to be done from the libertarian perspective. In the policy measure, government will do nothing. But since we aim to solve these problems, but how do we solve these problems? The problems can be solved by, there are representative bodies of any of the culture. Any group of people has a representative body. Spontaneously, we have risen up. Spontaneously, castes have their own congresses, and different communities have their own congresses as well. So what needs to be done is that those communities at their own level, when some dispute arises, sit together, discuss the issues, and when they fail to resolve the issue, go back and come back, try again later. And what would end up happening is that some areas would be better than others. Where market competition would come into play. That a particular community in a certain area solved the problem, and the others will either learn from them or will continue on the same path until they reach the point that now we need to do something about it. See, we need a belief in human nature that humans want peace and humans don't want perpetual war. With this operating in this assumption, we assume that eventually all systems will learn to operate peacefully. So each one will have different speed because each one has its own social structure and own geographical limitation. So keeping that in mind, let society play cultural institutions play solve these problems by sitting and talking with each other, which has been entire history. Disputes have been solved this way, that you just come, talk, exchange, make some trade-offs, and then establish some semblance of peace.
Yeah, there is no government picking sides, right, at different
Yeah.
times of their choosing, and it makes sense for us to, because that's what happens in an office, right? In an
Yes.
office, you're not calling another person by the caste or anything like that. You're just trying your best to work in harmony with them. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that when the politicians get involved, he has the motive to play one side against the other. BJP tries to do it one way, and BJP does it the communal way, and Congress does it the caste way. So either way, they just try to divide and rule, and even the British did the same thing. Same thing. So basically, it is just divide and rule going on by the political caste to preserve its power. And it isn't to say that these problems are easy to solve or will be solved in one day, but definitely over cycles these problems can be solved if the institutions are actually led to talk, and actually market processes operate in these institutions. Like some ill-intentioned leader come from one side, then someone other from the community is able to usurp him. The scope of his usurpation needs to be limited inside within the institution. He cannot come to with that by channelizing all those vendetta impulses. He's able to get control of government machinery and starts acting violently against the other community. That ends up happening in similar happens across the world. Similar events happen that
Yes.
one community unites under the name some politician rise up some community against some other, whether it's in India or some other country, and then uses it to maintain his power. So this is classic political play going
There
on for
should be
centuries.
some way for people to say their side of the story.
Yeah, definitely.
While the Libertarian Party, I think, will be more like a referee than someone who's taking sides in this case, right? So it'll be, okay, you want this and you want that, so here's the middle ground, and through dialogue you solve the issues, which is the most human thing to do.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
biggest example that we have is that of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that happened in South Africa after the apartheid regime ended. Both sides came, blacks and whites came, and said whatever grievances or whatever crimes they committed, and publicly admitted to them, and relative level of peace was achieved. Now the regression that happened is all because that they got too far and reduced reservations and all, and basically increased the problem to greater extent. So see, disputes happen all the time. Even families have disputes, but what families do is that they sit together. If they want to solve the dispute, they sit together, discuss, make some trade-offs, and then things are fine. Relative peace is achieved. Absolute peace is basically means death for everyone, but relative peace means that you give some, you take some.
Yeah, you have to lose something at the end of the
Yeah.
day, because
Trade is one of the, what libertarian is basically promoting trade. So we don't see any conflict with that. We are conflict is unsolvable.
Yeah.
These aren't difficult problems.
Yeah. So
They may take time, but these aren't difficult problems.
yeah. So there was one interesting story from 2002 Godhra riot. Like there was an area which was not affected by the riots, and like both the sides did not involve in the violence. Basically, the reason was both the communities were too interdependent because they were trading with each other, and businesses were very interdependent, and it never touched that area. So it's a very interesting story, like how
it is
even
very rare to see an angry shopkeeper at you, because he still wants to buy
Yeah.
your stuff.
yes,
Yeah, even Voltaire, when he visited England, he was talking that he visited the stock exchange, English stock exchange, and he was like, here the Christian, the Jew, and the Muslim trade with each other, and none of the violence exists. So even the trade is definitely one of the greatest factors that produces.
Equalizes, right? It
Yeah.
equalizes everything. It brings you down to earth, saying that, okay, you respect me enough to buy my goods, so there is a level of respect there at the end of the day.
Yeah.
see,
One thing more, but if how Singapore solved this problem, and it may sound tyrannical to many, but how they did was basically housing societies have quotas that this many houses will be allocated to members belonging to this community, and this many houses will be allocated to members belonging to this community. When they live together, their children go to the same schools, they play together. A lot of the tensions come down. So co-living is one of the way, and basically since when people interact a lot and trade a lot, trade or interaction, whatever word you use it, when this mechanism comes into play, peace comes very quickly.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, in certain cities in India, you can see it. Like, nobody really cares about anything other than, making friends and trading. That's kind of the two elements of society, like in general, in these cities. So, and it has a lot to do with different cultures coming together and being a melting pot of, ideas and things. So,
definitely,
yeah, I mean,
trading brings down the tendency of violence. Like, so our very first principle in libertarianism as non-aggression principles. Basically, this in the end, basically what it means is that while you're trading, you don't have to basically aggress upon some person. You just have to exchange value with each other.
right.
Yeah.
That's well put. Yeah, it is an exchange of value and ideas and nothing else. Like,
Yeah,
there is nothing else to it.
some may go that, oh, this isn't practical, oh, this is some hippie stuff. No, it isn't hippie stuff.
I've been
We aren't
called a
saying
hippie.
that you give flowers to each other and then everything will be fine. No, we are saying that you give a flower, you take money, he will give you something, you pay him money for this.
Yeah, amazing, guys. I love that session. I love that question. Let's head on to the next question. Now, this is something that's happening like right now. There's such a big deal made about it. So how is the Libertarian Party going to address immigration, for example, and border control? Like where do our borders lie, and how is something like this, how does the Libertarian Party view these kind of issues with immigration and border control?
See, ideally, this shouldn't be such a big problem. But due to unfortunate circumstances, we have crazy neighbors. India has crazy neighbors, so we can't. We have to rely on real politics first, and then decide on what libertarian policy comes into play. But yeah, so basically, our neighbors, which are crazy neighbors, which are Pakistan and Bangladesh right now. China, thankfully, the geography is so distant that many disputes don't rise. So yeah, so we cannot have open borders with either Pakistan or Bangladesh because of all the potential terrorist activity that would come into our country. So we can't have that. As far as countries like we have relatively open border with Nepal and similar thing with Bhutan and Burma. If we have or don't have, since there is there is a geographical limitation that the forests are so dense that it's a bit hard to cross. But even if we have free flow of labor or business with Myanmar, things will be fine. So immigration policy, the best one that we have is that we have exceptions for lunatics and basically crazy people don't get into the country, and as many talented people who across the world who want to come into the country and work and contribute to the society, they are invited.
Basically a similar situation to the US, right? I mean, like,
Yeah,
they want to stop the illegal immigration, but they don't mind the legal immigrants who basically come in to a certain extent. That's kind of the
yeah.
position.
But for that, we need globally competitive cities that people across the globe are interested in leaving their house and traveling thousands of kilometers away from their home base to come to our country. But India, I don't think that it would be much of a problem because although there is a culture shock, but those people who, if you see the videos or in YouTube videos and all, the people who emigrate to India from other countries, they aren't weirdos in their culture. They are normal people who just. And India is a people don't really, I have a theory that I recently observed is that India is like USA but 1,000 years into the future in terms of culture. We are yeah, we are very
True.
culture.
I can get
Yeah,
that. We are very culture heavy.
yeah, we are. Since if it first of all, in terms of the language, let's think that Sanskrit was the language of the country. Let's just keep the Dravidians aside. Let's assume that Sanskrit was the lingua franca of the country, and now English is the lingua franca of USA. But everywhere or everyone doesn't speak the same manner of English, and definitely in India the same manner of Sanskrit wasn't spoken. So the evolution of the language took place, and now we are 1,000 years. Different political forces have come in. 1,000 years ahead, we have Hindi and all these variations of Sanskrit operating in the country. Similar thing will happen in the United States as well. Language will keep evolving and new phrases will come in, old phrases will get deleted. And so what will end up, but all the people speak the same languages. They look very different.
Right.
You move from state to state and the physiognomy of people changes.
You can
People
see how
change. And
you can see how the three of us are looking very different
yeah,
from each other.
yeah,
We may as
we
well be
don't,
from three different countries, like at the end of the day.
yeah. We look from three different countries. So that's why I'm saying that culturally we are very multicultural and we have advanced a lot. So why I'm talking about this is because foreign immigrants coming, either Britishers or any English speaking nation, or even even when Chinese come in or Japanese come in, we won't have as much problem because we already have a very diverse society. And yeah, I don't say that there aren't ignorant people, but culture in as such isn't such a problem since caste boundaries has loosened up a lot. So culture won't be a problem. Economics would be a problem for other people moving into India. But I think I have seen many early adopters coming into India as well. So let's see where that trajectory goes. But definitely open borders. We can't have open borders due to our crazy
So
neighbors.
basically, no amount of dialogue is going to change anything majorly, right? That's kind of what the thing is.
Yeah, we can just ease up restrictions for Nepal and Bhutan and Burma and basically countries that are sane and have sane people who just want to work in India.
Understood.
Yeah,
So brings
so
me, yeah.
yeah, so even if you look at our history, like Nalanda University used to be a global university. We used to have people from Persia or China who used to come and learn learn from this university. So I don't think immigrants coming is a problem. Like we have a history of that also. Like a lot of people have come and settled here and
Yeah, even
lived a
people from one state moving to another state is like the same kind of immigration only. It didn't make any difference really. I mean, like everybody helped each other out. I mean, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and
So,
one thing I also would like to point out is that there is a community of Africans in, I don't know whether it's Gujarat or in
they are in
Maharashtra.
Bangalore. A huge community of Africans
No,
in
they are
Bangalore.
1,000-year-old, maybe
You're
500
talking
year old.
about
They came during
indigenous
the
communities.
yeah. They came
Right.
during the Mughal era. I don't know what his name was, Malik Gafur, something like that. Malik
Okay.
Ambar. But
Okay.
he was an African who built a domain in either Maharashtra or something. I cannot remember.
Right.
Race isn't that much of a problem in India. Although people make the hell out of it, but
Yeah,
culture doesn't support it.
I think again it's the government play.
Yeah, this is a politician.
I think with the libertarian system, it would be much easier to sort these issues out, because it's part of the local thing,
Yeah.
if they accept or not. It's not really about like a whole India issue at the end of the day, is what I
Yeah,
feel.
that's what I'm saying. And those who miss out on talent, those towns or municipalities will suffer, and either they will learn or they will die. That
Okay, brings us to question number 13 in episode number 3. This is another issue that's happening like right now. It's happening right now in India. So, how would the Libertarian Party of India handle economic crisis or market failures? What would be the role of the Libertarian Party in these aspects of things right now? Right now, the dollar is going up when the Indian rupee is flying down. So that's part of the economic crisis. But in general, economic crisis or market failures, how would this go? Tushar, volume went down, and there's an echo. Something happened? No. It's Himanshu. Are you able to hear Tushar properly?
I'm audible.
Perfect.
Yeah. So do absolutely nothing. Just do some PR. Just do some PR stunts that we are doing something, but actually you do nothing. Rather, remove restrictions. Move in the direction of removing restrictions, curbing the RBI, eventually getting rid of it. Things like that. Do absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
each crisis an opportunity for cutting more and more regulation and cutting more and more intervention. That's
oh,
what we will be doing.
Oh, okay. So that gives an insight because I mean you really cannot change the economic condition that another country may be doing well and your value tied to it is going down or whatever, right? And at the end of the day, I think there is a certain level of prevention rather than a cure here, right? We would have already set up things in such a way where the free market is happening, so the chances of us falling that behind are probably lesser, right? I mean, if I'm not wrong.
Let's suppose a crisis comes. It isn't like that. So first of all, maybe it's the limit of language or maybe it's the limit of education. It isn't like that. 100% of the people are affected. Those who are entrenched in the system are affected the most by a crisis. So this creates an opportunity for upstarts to come in. So this is how market is supposed to operate. That when a crisis comes in, the old, let's take a more simplistic example. Some pandemic comes in. Those who are the least healthy and the most vulnerable are affected and get out of the populace, and those who are much stronger and those who are much more well adapted to the situation survive and thrive. So this economic crisis is no different. Bloated companies and bloated institutions who have grown way out of proportion or uh, who weren't supposed to reach the scale that they reached, they would be taken out of the system and new upstarts would come in. But what political intervention does is that they try to protect the heavy top and basically too big to the phrase that is used, too big, they are too big to fail. First of all, if natural cycles, market cycles would have taken place, no institution would have become too big to fail. But it is the government intervention that creates institutions that are too big to fail, and then they keep accumulating and reach a position where for
Any examples you can think of? I know I'm planting a landmine here
yeah,
of,
so
of
let's
entities becoming too
the,
big.
yeah But the biggest example was the 2008 crisis of Lehman Brothers. Bank. First of all, the housing crisis was created by the government, and then Lehman Brothers did whatever it did. But the institution wasn't. First of all, the institution wasn't supposed to grow that fast. And when it grows that fast, making risky bets and all, then you need you want the government to step in to save the institution, to national. What they're saying is that nationalize the bank to preserve the jobs. These are really interconnected issues. First, there is the job that the bank creates, and there is the job that exists in the market.
Right.
People are trained to do the job that exists in the market. They aren't trained to do the job that the bank requires. Specific. See, banks are not some alien institution that bank operates in a really different manner and one bank operates in some really different manner. These are interchangeable roles, and natural hiring and firing goes on all the time. But suddenly entire bank goes out of operation doesn't mean that all the people are involved that they won't go to get any job. So this isn't a problem that employee jobs need to be retained. Now, talking about the aspect of the effect on the market, all the depositors and all the investment that the bank have made. That is why it needs to be realized that when politician creates artificial safety, the risk measures are any accounting, any projections that are made, they are made with account taking risk into account that this is the level of risk that we are willing to take. But when government creates artificial safety for institutions that aren't supposed to be safe, or bonds that aren't supposed to be safe, this is where the problem arises. And when all these wrong projections accumulate, this is where the crisis happens.
So is this somehow tied up with the waivers of lakhs and crores of loans and stuff like that?
Yes. This is basically tied up to why avoiding temporary pain, or whatever is called market failure, is creates much bigger problem later as compared to suffering right now. So, most recent example, Argentina suffered a small what will you call it, depression or something, whatever economic
Collapse,
crisis.
basically.
Yeah, but now shock therapy, whatever they had. Now the economy has started growing again because they
How
have
did that
lifted
happen in
restrictions.
1 year? Like it's kind of amazing just to think about it. Just
Yeah,
with the libertarian principles, right? The principles of this.
even Milley was saying that the changes will take time. But apparently, if you no one cut regulations, no one in history implemented the system as fast as he did. So he basically had no model to work on that how fast the changes will come when I actually follow through, and he hasn't gone full throttle yet. So you can see that how.
So from a chainsaw, it's going to become a bazooka at some point. Is
Yeah,
what you're saying?
yeah. So this is we had our own similar version of it in the liberalization, privatization, globalization reform that we had in 1991. So changes can come really fast, and this shows how many what is the phrase used for bottlenecks. I think the bottlenecks is the phrase. How many bottlenecks exist simply because of government regulations and their interventions. Once we start cutting down regulations, all these bottlenecks get away, and whatever economic unrealized potential existed, some factory needed to be set up, some refinery needed to set up, some people needed to be hired, some taxes need to be some businesses couldn't start because they couldn't get the loans. All these bottlenecks suddenly prop up the economy because they existed because of government intervention. So each crisis should be an opportunity to cut regulations and clean the house.
Amazing. All right. So
That's why I'm saying that Great Depression it is a criminal that how we are taught Great Depression. It was a government induced crisis, and
yeah.
more what the Great Depression actually is, it is taught as a stock market crisis, which actually wasn't. It was a banking crisis that was created by the Federal Reserve, and there is next to nothing talk about this. So what basically had happened was that earlier, how market bank failures had used to happen all the time in history. But what happened was bank had their own tricks like counting money slowly or shutting down or things like that to ensure that what basic bank failure basically happens. Let our audience know. Let me put it explain it really fast. So bank operates on the system of cash reserve ratio. So they keep some of the cash, rest they lend out, and this is how they create money. And basically, any point bank may have a balance sheet of 10 crores, but actually cash it may be holding in at hand is just 10 lakhs. So they have created 10 crore of money supply with just 10 lakh of actual deposits. So what happens in panic and bank crisis is that people depositors come in and they ask for all the for the cash back. And since bank the doesn't have the cash in hand to back it, and since these are in future promises that 10 years from now we will have 10 crores in our account. So ends up happening is that when all the depositors ask for their money, the bank simply has to shut down since it has run off its cash reserve ratio, and since it cannot keep its operation running, it cannot collect the money that it was supposed to collect. So this is how banks fail. The Federal Reserve did was it actually guaranteed the depositors that you will definitely get this much amount of money back, and it didn't let the market or the banks operate in their own way. That is basically whenever a banking crisis came, they either slowed down the operations or shut down the banks to calm down the depositor panic. So this is why cumulatively, and I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was something like 6,000 banks existed before the Great Depression started, and by the end of 5 years, it was some thousand or something. 3,000 to 4,000 banks went out of business due to all these Federal Reserve banker depositor assurance requirement. This is how this crisis came. And when credit crunch takes place, and say the economy starts faltering, because earlier this venture capital system that we currently operate in is relatively new. Earlier, businesses used to rely on bank loans to function, and since whenever a bank took hit, a business took all the businesses that were connected to that bank took a hit. So this is why the effect was so devastating, and that is why banks became such important to politicians, because they could create they were so entrenched in society that they could create such large effects. So yeah. So this is why this is why it is essential that you referee doesn't start handing out prizes to players themselves, and it just ensures that the game is played fairly, and let whoever has failed, let him fail and let him get out of the field.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also don't understand the point about like bailing people out consistently. It just
Yes.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I mean, like this is what some of the Indian movies also get wrong. Like they know the issue is that businesses are getting bailed out, and they of course talk about it. But then their solution is that we are not going to allow bailout to businesses, but we are going to allow bailout to other parties. So in this case, they will talk about like poor farmers, they need bailout. So our solution is don't give bailout to anyone. Like that's the
Okay,
final
it
solution.
is talking about a fair platform, right? You're all in the same boat. There is nobody's business is better than the other guy's business. You are a gold
Yes.
merchant, you're in the same boat. Like the world economy collapses for gold, you're out. It is that's how it is, right? It can't be that okay, I will bail out just this segment, and then while everybody else feels left out. So that is kind of what it is. Excellent. That brings us to our next question, the question number 14 in episode 3, which is the privatization of public assets. Like we talked about Blinkit a little with the ambulances, but what about assets like roads, utilities? Like, do you want everything to be privatized? How is this going to work now? Is the government going to play any part in it? How would the Libertarian Party go about this?
Talking about the roads, the highway system is already privatized. Private companies set up. It is working on the PPP model that government facilitates in land acquisition and all, but private players put up all the cash and build the roads and maintain the roads. So we are operating on the PPP model. So what now? The question is whether it should extend to city roads as well. So yeah, definitely we can do that as well. And talking about privatization, see, privatization raises eyebrows because there is a lot of there there is a huge chance of corruption happening in that. So what we can do is that we can use the strategy of making the public competitor irrelevant. So basically, it isn't like a government doesn't have infinite. It has very deep pocket, but it doesn't have infinite pocket. So it definitely doesn't innovate. So simple things like railways, fine. Indian government wants to operate railways, fine. Let private players build private lines that cater to the user base, that customer base that they are trying to get. Maybe they want super high speed rail or bullet trains or something, and they just want to basically how the airline operates, that they segmentize that we will cater to this level of audience and we will cater to this level of audience. So there
So
someone may introduce.
you're saying basically, if let's say the railways were privatized completely for the last 2 decades, example, right? What would our rail network be now? Would it be obliterating the existing railway
No.
network in the sense that would it be doing much better on a much larger scale, serving a lot more people? How would that?
Let's take a simple example. Let take a simple route. I will come from my experience. My experience is that Chandigarh to Delhi route is very busy. The highways are good, and the road railway network is also good. But what will end up happening is that uh, what the basic problem here is that you cannot take the airline because the flight is just of 40 minutes. But since you have to reach the airport 22 hours earlier, and the airport is 1 hour away, the calculation comes down to same 4 hours that you need to reach Delhi.
Right.
So this is why airlines don't operate from Chandigarh to Delhi. But definitely there are a lot of high paying people both in Delhi and in Chandigarh who want a really fast service. Right now, the fastest that we have is the Vande Bharat train that does it in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So basically, it's 1 minute. Yeah, 2 hours and 40 minutes. It does
Yeah,
that distance.
that's the train I took as well to get from Chandigarh to Delhi.
Yeah, so that is it. That is the fastest train that we have. But if we have something like a bullet train, it will hardly take an hour and 40 minutes, the same time that airlines are trying to do. And since railways don't have the same time lag that airlines require, but if we rely on the government system where they set up all the lines, they bring in the technology and all that, all the slow process that they go through, we will never end up having a bullet train between Chandigarh and Delhi ever. So what can happen is that you let private competitors who are in whatever industry they are in, whatever expertise they have, to operate an line from major cities like Chandigarh to Delhi, or Delhi to Lucknow, or Delhi to Mumbai, or Delhi to Jaipur. All these areas that have been connected by highways, but flights are too short to economically viable. To let railways, private players come in and operate railways on those directions.
I'm sure if free hand was given, maybe helicopters would have been a big thing, like these big passenger helicopters that can keep shuttling to and fro from these sort of
There are,
cities. I
see,
don't know.
there are no limits to the imagination of what system can do
That
when
is true.
when sufficient economic base exists. My basic argument is that areas. Let's suppose that we have. I don't know why this concept of double decker trains is ignored, or maybe we can go to triple deckers as well. Who knows?
Right.
What is the limit, or what level of innovation that we can achieve with the new material sciences and new inventions that take place in the automotive space. We don't
Yeah,
know
so
how
the
big
the
can go.
private sector may have had a better opportunity to really serve the customer, basically, right? Because that's what
Yes.
they try to do at the end of the day. Whereas I don't think the government is really thinking on those deep levels by any stretch of the imagination, really, at the end
Yeah,
of the
and
day.
for all those urbanists who say that I want to live or work in a village and then come to the city, all these solutions will only become possible when you have a private innovation coming into the, because roads aren't the way.
Right.
There are structural limitations that you need to go multiple levels of roads for to accumulate for all the traffic. Railways are the best because it is just a puck moving from point A to point B, and you are sitting on it.
And it usually moves through the outers of the city. You're not really, other than the
Yeah.
station itself, you're not really doing too
Yeah,
much.
and it doesn't have to move left or right. It moves in a straight line. So that solves a lot of the problem. Most of the traffic that actually exists is on the places where you have to take a turn. So this is more of a structural physics problem. But anyhow, what I'm trying to say is that if private players come into play, they will have sufficient incentive to innovate in spaces. Some places may require fast, some places might require big, some places might require almost nothing. Maybe we discovered that trams are much better to operate in your area as compared to any railway line or metro line. Who knows? But someone needs you. Someone needs to have the freedom to figure out, yeah, this works here and this doesn't work here, and currently that doesn't exist. So
Right.
This is where the party program comes in, that you're free to innovate in the mobility space. It's just moving people from point
I
A to
mean,
point
like
B.
just the idea of it itself is like I think any businessman can figure this out like in no time. Like, oh, okay, this is what these are the funds I need for it. This is the amount of loan I need for it. Let's do it. But
Yeah,
looks
and
like people don't have this freedom as of now, which is very surprising in a country especially that needs such mobility.
yeah, the crazy thing happens when politician gets involved in solving the problem. Now, Mumbai auto ballers have a union, and the different states have different unions. They, first of all, they unions are the worst. Cannot emphasize it enough. Secondly, what is happening in Mumbai right now is that it is really hard for you to get an Uber or Ola from airport to anywhere in the city. The problem is on both sides. The unions are creating the problem as well, and the company is creating problem as well. And since there are market distortions. Both of the party, all the three parties involved are in peace: unions, companies, and the customers. All three are not satisfied with the service because of all this intervention. It is really necessary that the market is really free to operate, and competition is related. Bad services get out, and good services join the.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
I mean,
people decide that, right? Whether it's going to be a good service or a bad service.
yes. Similar thing happened in Bangalore with Rapido bikes. Basically, to like get ahead of this auto wala's stranglehold, Rapido bike service was started, and this has actually lessened the burden for many people. Like, because the bike services are much cheaper than your auto services. Plus, those guys don't go on the meter service; they charge very heavy price, the auto walas. So, like, this is
Yeah,
how
and
market
people don't
solutions.
really have time of
Yeah.
the day to deal with all of that. It's very obvious that people want some quick solution where you can just.
Yes, this is really crazy that talking about a personal anecdote. My house is Mumbai is hardly 3 or 5 kilometers away from the terminal, and I went to the some certain cab service, and they were saying that it will cost 1,000. I was like, in what world that there's traveling 5 kilometers, 15 minutes is requires 1,000 rupees? I mean, what sort of economics is going on here? And when I try to book an Uber, and it took me almost half an hour to get the driver. And when I joined the driver, he was really depressed, and he was saying that Uber charges us huge 50% and all, and
Yeah, so please
I
give
hardly
cash.
make anything out of it. And then I said that why not try InDriver, and why not try Ola? So I was also surprised that there has been surprise reduction in number of competitors in this space. Although the barrier to entry shouldn't be such big, as you just have to make an app. So he was like, InDriver almost no one uses, and Ola I will try to shift, but the prices are, there is a few percentage point difference. So I was like, yeah, definitely this is a distorted market, and free market would have solved this problem
Yeah, actually.
that unions and companies have created. So see, institutions are institutions. They try to preserve themselves, and they respond accordingly. If one institution misbehaves, the other misbehaves as well. But what is the curious nature of politicians or government is that it tries to cater to both, and rather than being a referee, it tries to cater to both and pitting one side against the other. So to extract both from both of them. So they keep the problem and maybe exacerbate it. So that's why there is such strong opposition in libertarianism to governments, because government is basically, I will keep repeating it 1,000 or a million times, that government is nothing but politicians and bureaucrats, and you don't like personally dealing with either. So how can you trust a collective taking care of you?
How do they even know what we are going through? Like that is my biggest concern. Like there are people screaming, hey, I don't have bus in my village to take me to my work, and who's listening to it? Like nobody is listening to them. If there was a business there, he would have been like, oh, I'll get you a bus.
Yeah, talking about when there were talking 10, 15 years earlier, when there used to be state run bus shortages. So there used to be these large cruiser jeeps. I don't know whether you're aware of them. I don't know what company made
Yeah,
them.
yeah, truckers,
Cruiser,
truckers, truckers. They were called TREKKERS. Those
yeah,
big jeeps, open
whatever it was.
jeeps. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. People they used to stand outside bus stands, and they used to charge similar prices to the bus ticket, and
right,
used to take people. It isn't like market. So this shows that market naturally responds to whenever there is a customer base. So
right.
government creates more problems than it solves.
Yeah, I mean, more problems in the sense those trekkers are not roadworthy, first of all. Like half their tires are. So it's almost like they are creating more issues than need to be. Like
Yeah,
it's one of those
definitely.
things, right? Right. So this brings us to the 15th question of episode 3. In episode 3, and criminal justice system. How does that work in the libertarian governance aspects of things? Like, well, is the criminal definition the same? How would justice work in the libertarian party?
There are two aspects to it. First of all, criminal, and there is civil. Civil, talking in terms of what judicial reforms, what the libertarian movement would bring into the current system. So, civil cases can be handled by private arbitrators, arbitrator bodies that they represent the people, and basically out of court arbitration. Even Mahatma Gandhi promoted it that disp- disputes can be resolved out of court as compared to solving them in court. Civil cases. For criminal cases, it is a wisdom of history that it is much better to rely on the culture as means of justice as compared to relying on the top-down polity. But what?
Meaning one particular location in India could have something like the death penalty, but the other locations may not.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you let the institution of slavery or things like that prop in.
Right.
So
The
keeping
punishment
keeping
has
the
to fit the crime. Basically, it cannot be.
yeah, let the culture decide the degree of it, but you cannot violate we have to keep in mind that everybody every municipality or whatever local body that they follow the constitution that has been put through in the country, and then they can use they can use variations on it without violating the fundamental principles that have been put in it. So this is how justice needs to be done. But what are courts basically trying to do? Courts are basically trying to interpret the constitution, decide their judgment. How is their judgment backed? Their judgment is backed on their reading of the constitution. So what we will basically try to do is that the slight tweaks that need to be done in the constitution, that will be done. But what needs to be ensured is that the fundamental principles of the fundamental rights that are ensured in the constitution and the fundamental spirit of the constitution isn't violated, and then you are free to vary on the degree. Suppose you have a high crime society. Initially, you need to be tough on crime to bring crime down, like they are doing in El Salvador right now. Nayib Bukele is doing it. But eventually, you can when things have turned European style, where they are shutting down jails, the level of law and order has improved to such an extent. Let society progress in that way. So rather than top down imposition, let people.
Right. So that brings us to the end of another. Actually, Tushar, it is echoing from your laptop. Hello? Now it's better. Yeah. Alright, so that brings us to the end of another episode, the third episode of this, with 5 more questions, and we just got into a lot of things, including certain economical aspects of things and infrastructure as well. And if you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, please go ahead and watch them as well. There are 5 different questions of various natures, including taxation in them, so please do watch them as well. And you can also look forward to another episode of 5 more questions. That's going to be a theme for a while now. We are going. So please subscribe. Please subscribe to Liberty Party on X. Also subscribe to our Instagram. You will get notifications on our next videos, which are going to be even more in depth. And there's going to be a lot of things that you will learn about how the libertarian system and the Libertarian Party of India can help India in general, can help you in general. So that's it. True freedom awaits. So until the next time, good night.
Thank you.